Mark had been a single dad for 3 years now, ever since his wife passed away unexpectedly. Raising their daughter, Lily, alone wasn't easy, but he did his best to provide stability and love. He worked long hours as a mechanic, often coming home late, but every moment with Lily was precious. Lily was 8 years old, full of curiosity and energy, though she sometimes seemed quieter than other kids her age. Mark knew she missed her mom deeply, just like he did. To keep things light, they spent weekends doing outdoor activities, biking, fishing, or hiking, to create memories and distract themselves from the sadness that lingered at home. One Friday evening, Mark suggested a hike in the nearby woods. "It'll be fun," he told Lily, packing snacks and water bottles. "Just you and me, exploring the wild." Lily grinned, excited by the idea. She loved spending time with her dad, especially when they got to talk about silly things like animals, school adventures, and what superheroes would do in the woods. The next morning, they set off early, the crisp autumn air filling their lungs as they walked along winding trails surrounded by golden leaves. For a while, everything felt peaceful, just the sound of birds chirping and twigs snapping underfoot. But little did they know, this ordinary hike would lead to an extraordinary discovery, one that would change all their lives forever. As Mark and Lily hiked deeper into the forest, the trail grew quieter. The cheerful chatter of birds faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. Lily clung to her dad's hand, sensing something was off. "Do you hear that?" she whispered suddenly, tugging at his sleeve. Mark stopped walking, straining to listen. At first, he thought it might be the wind rustling through the trees. But then he heard it, a faint, desperate cry for help. "Stay close to me," Mark instructed firmly, gripping Lily's hand tightly as they followed the sound. They pushed through thick bushes until they reached a small clearing and froze. There, tied to a tree with heavy chains, was a woman. Her clothes were torn, her face bruised, and her eyes wide with terror. She looked like she hadn't eaten or slept in days. "Please, help me," she croaked weakly, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked face. Mark didn't hesitate. He knelt beside her, speaking softly to calm her down. "We're here to help. You're safe now." Lily stood quietly behind him, clutching his jacket. Though scared, she watched her dad work quickly, pulling out a multi-tool from his backpack. With steady hands, he began cutting through the chains binding the woman's wrists and ankles. "It's okay," he reassured her. "I've got you." Once freed, the woman collapsed into sobs, her body trembling from exhaustion and fear. Mark wrapped his jacket around her shoulders and helped her sit up against the tree. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Sarah," she managed to say between shaky breaths. "I'm Mark, and this is my daughter, Lily. We're going to get you out of here." Mark pulled out his phone but cursed under his breath when he saw no signal. "We'll have to hike back to the main road to call for help," he explained. Sarah nodded weakly, leaning on Mark as they started moving slowly. Lily stayed close, holding Sarah's hand and offering quiet words of encouragement. "You're brave," Lily told her earnestly, "like a superhero." Despite everything, Sarah managed a faint smile. "Thank you," she whispered. Every step was agonizing for Sarah, but Mark kept talking to keep her focused. "Just a little farther," he said repeatedly. "You're doing great." When they finally reached the edge of the woods and found cell service, Mark immediately dialed emergency services. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, rushing Sarah to the hospital. Before she was loaded into the ambulance, Sarah grabbed Mark's hand one last time. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "You saved my life." Mark shook his head. Anyone would have done the same. But deep down, he knew this moment was different. Something about Sarah's gratitude, and the way Lily looked up at him with pride, felt monumental. Little did they know, their paths were only beginning to intertwine. At the hospital, Sarah was treated for dehydration, malnutrition, and severe injuries from being chained to the tree. Mark stayed by her side, refusing to leave until he knew she was safe. Lily waited in the lobby with a family friend, drawing pictures of trees and superheroes to pass the time. When Sarah finally woke up, she found Mark sitting beside her bed, looking exhausted but determined. "You didn't have to stay," she said softly, her voice still hoarse. "Yes, I did," Mark replied firmly. "You're not alone anymore." Over the next few days, Sarah began opening up about what had happened to her. She revealed that she'd been kidnapped by a group of criminals after witnessing illegal activities, drug smuggling operations tied to powerful people in the city. "They warned me not to talk," Sarah explained, tears welling up in her eyes. "When I tried to go to the police, they grabbed me and left me in the woods to die. They thought no one would find me out there." Mark listened intently, anger boiling inside him as he imagined the fear she must have endured. He promised her they'd get justice, but first, they needed to ensure her safety. The criminals were still out there, and if they found out she was alive, they wouldn't hesitate to come after her again. Detectives visited Sarah in the hospital, taking detailed statements and promising protection. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Every shadow seemed threatening, every sound like footsteps approaching. "Why are you helping me?" she asked Mark one evening as he sat beside her bed. He hesitated before answering. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because my wife always said we should help others when we can. It's what keeps us human." Sarah nodded, touched by his words. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Before leaving the hospital, Mark gave Sarah his number. "If you need anything at all, you call me," he insisted. "We'll figure this out together." Sarah smiled weakly, clutching the scrap of paper with his number on it. "Thank you, Mark, for everything." Back home, Mark struggled to explain the situation to Lily without scaring her. "That lady we saved, her name is Sarah. She got hurt really badly because some bad people wanted to scare her," he said gently. "But we're going to make sure she's okay now." Lily nodded solemnly. "She's brave, Daddy. Like you." Mark hugged her tightly, grateful for her innocence and trust. As days turned into weeks, Mark checked in on Sarah regularly, bringing groceries, sitting with her during interviews with detectives, and simply listening when she needed to talk. Slowly, she began to heal, not just physically but emotionally. One afternoon, as they sat together in her small apartment, Sarah looked at Mark with gratitude. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you," she admitted. "You already have," Mark replied. "You've reminded me that even in the darkest times, there's still light. That's worth more than anything." Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, built on mutual respect and shared pain. Sarah began seeing Mark and Lily not just as rescuers, but as a family who truly cared about her. And yet, neither of them realized how much their lives were about to change, or how deeply intertwined their futures would become. As weeks turned into months, Sarah slowly began to rebuild her life. With Mark's unwavering support, she found the courage to face each new day, despite the lingering fear of the criminals still at large. The authorities had placed her under protective custody, but Sarah knew that true healing wouldn't come from hiding. It would come from reclaiming her sense of self-worth and purpose. Mark became a constant presence in her life, checking in daily to make sure she was okay. Sometimes he brought Lily along, and the three of them would spend afternoons talking, laughing, or simply sitting quietly together. For Sarah, these moments were priceless. They reminded her that she wasn't alone, that there were people who genuinely cared about her well-being. Lily especially warmed up to Sarah quickly, treating her like the mother figure she'd been missing since her mom passed away. One evening, while coloring pictures at Sarah's kitchen table, Lily looked up and said earnestly, "You should move in with us, Sarah. Then we can be a real family." Sarah froze, unsure how to respond. She glanced at Mark, who smiled softly but didn't say anything. "We've got room," he added casually, "and it might be safer for you, not to mention easier on all of us." Though hesitant at first, Sarah eventually agreed. Moving in with Mark and Lily felt like stepping into a safe haven, a place where she could heal without constantly looking over her shoulder. Living together wasn't always easy. There were nights when Sarah woke up screaming from nightmares, reliving the terror of being chained to that tree. On those nights, Mark would sit by her bedside until she calmed down, reminding her that she was safe now. "Take your time," he'd say gently. "Healing isn't something you rush." Lily played her part too, often sneaking into Sarah's room with a glass of water or a stuffed animal. "This is Mr. Snuggles," she'd whisper, handing over her favorite toy. "He keeps bad dreams away." Through their kindness, Sarah started to feel like she belonged somewhere for the first time in years. She began helping around the house, cooking meals, organizing Lily's school supplies, and even planting flowers in the backyard. Each small act gave her a sense of control and normalcy she hadn't felt since before her ordeal. But the threat of danger still loomed. Detectives warned Mark and Sarah that the criminals were growing desperate, knowing Sarah was alive and cooperating with law enforcement. Anonymous threats arrived in the mail, and strange cars lingered near their neighborhood. "It's not safe here anymore," one detective advised during a meeting. "We need to relocate you temporarily while we close in on these guys." Sarah hesitated, torn between protecting herself and staying with the family who had become her lifeline. Sensing her struggle, Mark stepped in. "We'll go with you," he declared firmly. "Wherever you need to be, we'll make it work." His words meant everything to Sarah. For so long, she'd felt abandoned by the world. But now, she had people willing to stand by her no matter what. They packed up essentials and relocated to a secure safe house provided by the authorities. Though cramped and unfamiliar, the space felt comforting because they were together. Days blurred into weeks as they waited anxiously for updates from the investigation team. During this time, Sarah and Mark grew closer than ever. Late-night conversations revealed shared dreams and fears. They both wanted stability and happiness for Lily, and they both carried scars from losses they'd endured. "You've done so much for me," Sarah told him one night as they sat on the porch watching stars. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You already have," Mark replied. "By trusting us, by letting us help. That's all the repayment I need." For the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival. Maybe, just maybe, love and safety weren't things she had to fight for alone anymore. Months passed, and the investigation finally reached a turning point. The criminals were arrested during a raid, thanks to evidence provided by Sarah and relentless work by law enforcement. With the threat neutralized, Sarah could breathe freely for the first time in years. She no longer had to look over her shoulder or worry about shadows lurking outside her window. But even as the danger faded, something remarkable remained. Her bond with Mark and Lily. What started as an act of rescue had grown into something deeper, transforming all three of their lives in ways none of them expected. Sarah officially moved back in with Mark and Lily, not out of necessity this time, but because they all wanted it. To Lily, Sarah wasn't just the lady we saved. She was mom now. And to Mark, Sarah wasn't just someone he'd helped. She was a partner who brought warmth and light back into their home. Their days settled into a rhythm filled with laughter, love, and shared responsibilities. Sarah took charge of cooking, filling the house with the smell of homemade meals that reminded everyone of comfort and care. Mark fixed things around the house, always humming tunes that made Lily giggle. Together, they tackled challenges like school projects, leaky faucets, and bedtime stories. All the little moments that stitched their family together. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, Sarah found Mark sitting on the couch flipping through old photo albums. Pictures of his late wife smiled up at them from the pages, stirring bittersweet memories. "She'd approve of you, you know," Mark said softly, gesturing toward one of the photos. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "I hope so. I want to honor her memory for Lily's sake." Mark nodded, reaching for her hand. "You already are. You've given us a second chance at happiness." That's what she would have wanted. Their relationship deepened further as they navigated life's ups and downs together. They celebrated milestones. Lily winning a spelling bee, Sarah landing a job at a local library, and Mark finally fixing the stubborn lawnmower. They also faced hardships, like when Lily fell ill with the flu and needed round-the-clock care, or when bills piled up faster than expected. But through it all, they leaned on each other, proving that their makeshift family was stronger than any obstacle. Holidays became especially meaningful. Their first Christmas together was magical, Decorations covered every inch of the house, cookies baked in bulk, and presents wrapped with care. For the first time in years, Lily's laughter echoed through the halls without a trace of sadness. "This feels real," Sarah whispered to Mark as they watched Lily tear into her gifts. Like we're supposed to be here." "We are," Mark replied, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "This is our family now." As time went on, Sarah began opening up more about her past. The dreams she'd put aside, the fears that still lingered, and the gratitude she felt for being given another shot at life. Mark listened patiently, encouraging her to chase those dreams again. "You deserve happiness, Sarah," he told her one quiet evening. "Don't let anyone take that away from you, not even yourself." Inspired by his words, Sarah enrolled in night classes to pursue a degree in social work. Her goal was to help others who had been through trauma, just as she had been helped. Watching her grow stronger and more confident filled Mark with pride. Meanwhile, Lily flourished under Sarah's nurturing guidance. She blossomed into a bright, cheerful child, excelling in school and making friends easily. One day, while drawing a picture of their family, she proudly declared, "We're the best team ever." And she was right. Despite their unconventional beginnings, they had created something beautiful. A family built on trust, resilience, and unconditional love. The day the criminals were sentenced marked a turning point for Sarah. Sitting in the courtroom, she listened as the judge delivered justice. Long prison terms for every member of the gang. Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't tears of fear this time. They were tears of relief, closure, and gratitude. When the trial ended, Mark hugged her tightly outside the courthouse. "It's over," he whispered. "You're free." Sarah nodded, clutching his hand. For so long, she'd lived in the shadow of her past, afraid to dream of a future. But now, standing beside Mark and knowing Lily waited for them at home, she felt truly alive for the first time in years. That evening, they celebrated with a quiet dinner at home. Lily made colorful placemats with drawings of their family, labeling each one with big, bold letters, "Dad," "Mom," and "Me." "I'm glad we're a team," Lily said between bites of pizza. "So am I," Sarah replied, smiling through happy tears. Over the next few months, Sarah embraced her new life fully. She graduated from her social work program, earning applause not just from professors but from Mark and Lily, who cheered louder than anyone else in the audience. Her first job placement was at a shelter for survivors of violence, a role that allowed her to give back to others who had faced similar struggles. Mark watched proudly as Sarah found her purpose, realizing how much she had transformed since the day they met. She wasn't the same frightened woman chained to a tree. She was strong, capable, and full of hope. Their bond continued to grow, too. One crisp autumn morning, Mark surprised Sarah with breakfast in bed and a small velvet box. Inside was a simple gold ring. "You've already given me so much," he said nervously. "But I want to make it official. Will you marry me?" Sarah stared at him, overwhelmed with emotion. "Yes," she whispered, throwing her arms around him. "1,000 times yes." Lily burst into the room moments later, holding a bouquet of wildflowers she'd picked from the backyard. "Is this okay?" she asked excitedly. "I wanted flowers for Mom." "It's perfect," Sarah laughed, pulling her into a group hug. Their wedding was modest but heartfelt, held in the backyard where they'd shared so many memories. Friends, neighbors, and even some of Sarah's colleagues from the shelter gathered to celebrate. Lily served as both flower girl and self-appointed best helper, while Mark's late wife was honored with a photo displayed near the altar. "We did it, sweetheart," Mark whispered to Sarah as they danced under twinkling string lights. "We built something beautiful." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder, feeling peace wash over her. "Together," she murmured. As the years passed, their family thrived. Lily grew into a confident teenager, excelling in school and dreaming of becoming a teacher like her dad. Sarah continued her work at the shelter, inspiring countless women to reclaim their lives. And Mark, though older and grayer, remained the steadfast anchor of their family. One summer evening, As they sat together on the porch watching fireflies flicker in the dark, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. From a chance encounter in the woods to building a home filled with love, they had proven that even the darkest moments could lead to light, if you had the courage to reach out and hold on. "Do you ever think about that day in the forest?" Sarah asked softly. "All the time," Mark replied. "If we hadn't found you, none of this would have happened. But if I hadn't been there," Sarah countered with a smile, "we wouldn't be here together." They sat in silence for a moment, content in the knowledge that their story was proof of something extraordinary. Love can bloom in the most unexpected places, and second chances are possible, even after the hardest trials. Because when people come together with kindness, courage, and hope, anything is possible. Mark, Lily, and Sarah's story reminds us that even in the darkest times, a single act of kindness can spark a chain reaction of hope, healing, and transformation. Their journey, from a terrifying discovery in the woods to building an unbreakable family, shows us the incredible power of compassion, courage, and connection. And now, it's your turn to carry that light into the world. Think about the people around you, your friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, or even strangers you pass on the street. Any one of them could be facing challenges you can't see. Maybe they're struggling with loss, fear, loneliness, or uncertainty. What if you were the person who stepped in to help? Start small but meaningful. Hold the door open for someone whose hands are full. Offer a listening ear to a friend who seems distant lately. Leave a kind note for a coworker having a tough week. These gestures may feel insignificant to you, but to someone else they might mean everything.